Well, hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so we did take a look at Sauron's deep dive already, and now we're going to be breaking down Toad. As always, very important to understand that it's impossible to fully evaluate champion from the deep dive or even full ability description, because it's all about how the champion comes together when you actually need to use him. Often it takes weeks, if not months, to actually find the best and potential use for these champions, and it's also the numbers game. The numbers are always extremely misleading when it comes to how we see them on deep dive, because we do not have full context of the nodes, if any masteries are used or synergies, and just in general they often end up being significantly different. However, we can gauge what the champion is going to be about, kind of, and what kind of abilities are going to be in his base kit. So Toad is immune to poison, and his regeneration rate cannot be modified by outside sources. It's very similar to Sauron, which is kind of like a new trend. We're getting more and more of these champions who cannot have their regeneration rate altered. And it's kind of starting to bug me a bit, because we have so many champions right now that can do it, and obviously Despair Mastery is a very popular mastery, and it just kind of shuts them off. So that's one thing. Also, 7% chance when struck to inflict a paralytic poison debuff. Being struck with critical hits has 40% chance. And that is obviously a defensive ability, which is going to be something we're going to need to take in mind, especially when Toad is going to be awakened. There will be a lot of tricky matchups where Toad can be placed with different node combinations. But the key thing is, if you're going to be striking him, you're going to be gaining these paralytic poisons. However, you can't really be immune or purify willy-nilly against this guy either, or you're going to get passively stunned. So that's going to put us in a bit of a pickle and conundrum how to deal with this guy. So there are definite defensive capabilities, and it starts, well, for instance, here, where striking the guy is going to put this debuff on. Now, we can purify this debuff by dashing forwards or backwards once every 2 seconds, which is good. However, every time we purify it, he's going to be basically getting a prowess if he's awakened. And on top of that, if it's a skilled champion that does that, you just get a passive paralytic poison placed on you instead, which will have some very interesting interactions with some of the skilled champions like Nick Fury. So again, it's kind of like very tricky to initially gauge how annoying this guy's going to be on defense, but it does sound like there will be problem areas for sure. Now, he has his tongue attacks, which are his second medium and some hits on his special 1 and special 2. So tongue attacks have 100% chance to inflict that paralytic poison. Then let's just take a look at the paralytic poison in full. Deals X amount of damage over 30 seconds, so they last for a really long time, and reduces health recovery by 30%. Paralytic poisons count as poison debuffs, so you will be able to use him on like acid wash and things like that. Dashing forward or dashing backwards purifies one of Toad's personal paralytic poison debuffs. This effect cannot happen more than once every 2 seconds, which is what I already mentioned. And if you are purifying as a skill champion, then we get the passives on. And once you reach 10 of them, you combine the 10 paralytic poison debuffs into a passive. And once that happens, you also passively stun the opponent, which is kind of going to be a theme, that this guy can quite actively passively stun the opponents. And there will obviously be benefits to that, but just the simple fact that it's a passive stun, it's going to be quite tricky for a lot of champions to get around it. Now we do have his special attacks. His special 1 basically gives you secretion, regeneration, which is a mechanic that, again, largely is going to be defensive when you are striking him against the wall. Whilst he's against the wall, he's going to be gaining his paralytic secretion, which is a passive regen, which gets more potent the higher your combo meter, up to 15. And every time he gains that passive regen, he also gains a prowess effect, which, if he's awakened, can be devastating. Again, and level 1 just lets you activate one of those regens, and with that also gain a fairly potent prowess, because that prowess actually is quite powerful, and you can get 5 with those. So heavy attacks consume 1 poison debuff to deal 2000 as a burst of physical damage. That could be quite useful because there will be times when you want to time very carefully how and when you reach the 10 stacks of poison, and just having a nice area where you can control how many poisons you have on the opponent and not go into that passive poison too early could be very useful, and it could be a decent source of damage as well. Now let's take a look at Paralytic secretion. That is the regen. So as we can see here, it gets activated while you are struck near the wall, and you regen 5% missing health over 8 seconds. You can stack it up 3 times, and then plus 1% regeneration potency for every hit on opponent's combo meter. Critical hits, bleeds, and incinerate debuffs also have 20% chance to trigger this regen, and against skilled champion you gain plus 50% chance on top of it. It's going to be quite annoying to fight him with skilled champions. On top of that, 40% chance to inflict paralytic poison on contact while secretion is active. So when you do have this regen active, you will be throwing poison after poison on the opponent. So that will happen either after your level 1 or if you get struck whilst being in corner, which again is much more of a defensive ability, as we can see here. And his special attacks are fairly straightforward. Level 1 is what activates that regeneration and gives you a prowess. Level 2 is what deals damage, can inflict burst amounts of damage and consumes all your prowesses. And level 3 basically inflicts the big poison and also consumes your prowesses. So level 1 is to build prowesses, and level 2 and 3 is to consume them. Now let's take a look at the signature ability. You gain an indefinite passive prowess, increasing special attack damage by 25% when a personal stun or poison or the stun from the parry mastery is purified or fails to trigger due to immunities, max 10 stacks. So this is when it's going to get kind of tricky there, because it's first and foremost, it's quite a lot of increased special attack damage, which wouldn't be the craziest thing. But if you're going to use a champion that is poison immune, eventually effectively going to get passively stunned. At 10 prowess, consume all prowess to inflict a passive stun for 2 seconds. When a poison fails to trigger due to the immunity, this effect cannot interrupt a special attack. Well, there we go. So unless you are using a special attack when these 10 prowess would be built up, you're basically going to get immediately stunned, which is going to suck. Also, again, 100% passive stun duration if triggered by a tongue attack, so that's, you know, neat or whatever. But yeah, in total you can amass 15 prowess effects, 5 of them 75%, and then 10 of them 25%. So if you get 10, so you basically get about 250. Sorry, 250. My math head is all wrong with the math, but so if it's 25% times 10, 250, 375%, something like that. And yeah, no, you can get quite large boost. I think in total that would work out as 750% special attack damage increase if you have all the max prowesses, which could lead to some very, very, very big special attacks. It's not going to be easy to get there, and it's going to be situational, but it could have some very, very big special attacks. I don't think it serves a good example here, but I think when we're going to see the CCP videos, we're going to see quite a lot of damage. So looking at the synergies, to be honest, none of the synergies really seemed all that good. Here, tongue attacks that make contact deal 25% attack as a burst of physical damage. Doesn't really matter. You can easily get like 10-20% attack increase anyhow. Sauron inflict a bleed passive, dealing 15% on attack rating as direct damage over 6 seconds on a final hit of the heavy attack. It's nothing special, just another source access to bleed. Now this synergy for Storm is quite shit too. You get some special attacks have 15% crit rating increase. Cool, slightly more damage. And Storm, you deal 15% burst instant shock damage whilst you're hitting a stunned opponent. But, you know, even with Storm, opponents isn't stunned like all the time. And 15% isn't that much. Then 8% poison debuff potency. 8%. Thank you very much. And then we have Man-Thing and King Groot start the fight with an indefinite prowess buff, increasing special attack damage by 60%. Now, I would love this synergy, but this buff is removed after the special attack ends, so it's just for one special attack, and again, it's just not worth it. So I don't think any of those synergies are quite worth it for any of the champions. This one can be useful because with Magneto and Toad, you can use them for can't stop, won't stop lanes then. Because while Paralytic Secretion is active, gain an unstoppable buff for 5 seconds when charging a heavy attack, cooldown 12 seconds. Can't stop, won't stop requires you to have Unstoppable in order to do damage, but also doubles the duration of your Unstoppable. So on Can't Stop, Won't Stop, this would be 10-second Unstoppable that you can access every 12 seconds. And obviously Magneto is a great champion for Can't Stop, Won't Stop either. So this is actually very good. Situational, but definitely can have a use where both champions can, like, deal with a specific lane. It's not going to be the synergies that you need to use all the time, but it actually has some uses and, worthwhile uses. So there we go. And then the last one with Scarlet Witches is 15% combat power rate while Paralytic Secretion is active. And again, it's just while that Paralytic Secretion is active. It's quite easy to get like 8 or 10% combat power rate with other means, so it's nothing really all that special. Fortunately, synergies are kind of whatevers for all the champions involved. But when it comes to Toad himself, that passive stun thing at 10 prowesses, consume all prowess to inflict a passive stun for 2 seconds when a poison fails to trigger due to an immunity. That could be a very finicky and annoying line, and it doesn't have to be 10 prowesses from this ability. So if you put him on aggression prowess nodes or some other things, it's kind of what the best I describe. I'm 100% sure that we are going to find counters and solutions to this guy. If nothing better, then Nimrod is the obvious option, but I'm sure there are going to be more. But it's just one of those champion builds where you're doomed if you do, and if you're doomed if you don't. Because obviously, don't bring in poison immune champions, and you're going to have to deal with a lot of poisons being placed on you, and you're going to have to play very, very carefully. And then you bring in a champion that is poison immune, and then you're going to get stunned, and you're going to get wrecked in the face. So, again, I'm sure there will be plenty of counters. 100%. There will be, quirky playstyles or what have you. At the same time, it definitely sounds somewhat annoying. I am quite looking forward to using him offensively too, as well, though. There are definite several things that I do like about the character. And again, it all kind of comes down to how well his kit comes together when we actually have to use him in actual fights, and also on how the numbers are going to look like. To say that, he's clear-cut defender or going to be useless somewhere, no, we can't say that at all. There's plenty in his kit for him to turn out to be awesome. It's not a guarantee, however. It's not a guarantee by any means. It would be very easy to just make sure that he's super underwhelming. So it's going to be interesting, let's say that. It's going to be interesting to wait for more gameplay, more details on Toad. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you prefer, Toad or Sauron? So yeah. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the